Mahomes back, throws. It is incomplete, picked off by the Lions. Brian Branch with it left side. He's gone, baby. He's going to the house. Touchdown, Detroit Lions. Deflected in the air, Branch ran under it, and he took it all the way back.
Week 4 of the NFL season is a short week for the Detroit Lions as they have a quick turnaround from Sunday's win, against Atlanta to a Thursday night matchup at Lambeau against the Green Bay Packers.
Prime time, baby.
Tim Twentyman, PJ Clark here for Twentyman in the Huddle podcast presented by Microsoft. Short and sweet, but let's get right into maybe a couple news and notes real quick. We do have to say that we have a new addition to the podcast table. We have the alternate helmet.
Sorry if you're listening to
has
this,
arrived.
The alternate helmet's here.
It looks nice. It's a nice addition.
Excited. Only 4 more weeks until that.
4 more weeks until
Next
that.
primetime game. So.
But first off, huge matchup, early season. I mean, you've got, 2-1 Green Bay Packers, 2-1 Detroit Lions. You not only finish the quarter 3-1 with a win Thursday, you also take first place in the division.
This is what you play for.
And this is big. I think, coaches separate the season into those quarters, right? And I think if you're Dan Campbell and you sit there and you've got wins against Green Bay, Atlanta, previously undefeated Atlanta, and Kansas City, you're only hiccup to a pretty good Seattle team. I think you feel really good about where you're at in the NFC. You're only trailing San Francisco and Philly in terms of them being undefeated before they play on the weekend. So a win Thursday, you're just in such a great spot.
Yeah, and I feel like this is not the end-all, be-all. It would be a massive win if it happens. You got to keep the train rolling and keep the bounce back from Seattle and beat Green Bay. All of that is important, but it's still early. You want to be 3-1, but this is not, as big as this game is. We talked about it on Sunday in the postgame show that, it's go time now. First division game. Cam Sutton brought it up in the locker room celebration video the other night after the win against Atlanta. They want this one bad, but it doesn't have to be the end-all, be-all from here.
And it sounds like they're getting a little bit healthier. Yeah. It sounded like when Dan talked on Tuesday afternoon that he was pretty optimistic that Taylor Decker would be able to play, that David Montgomery would be able to play. Taylor Decker obviously hasn't played the last 2 games with a high ankle sprain and a bone bruise. David Montgomery missed last week after having a thigh bruise against Seattle week 2. So they're getting some pieces back healthy. We'll see about Kirby Joseph and some of the other guys, but certainly good news with Decker and Montgomery. And then over on the other side, it looks like Green Bay's getting a little bit healthier too. Yeah. Christian Watson sounds like he's going to play. Looks like they probably have Aaron Jones. Bahktiari, they could have him as well. So it looks like everybody's going to kind of get all their pieces back, and there's going to be no excuses. It's just about going on the road and trying to get a win.
That's the way to do it. And I think for the Lions, you're getting back Taylor Decker, who's veteran leader that knows what it's like to go play in Green Bay, but Montgomery too. He brought it up yesterday. He's never beaten the Packers.
Oh,
you
really?
Think that guy wants this one? I think he wants it pretty bad. So,
and getting Decker back also allows you to shift Penei Sewell back over to the right side where you've dealt with some injuries. Look, Colby Sorsdale did a great job stepping in last week, a guard.
Flexing out his first NFL game action.
Yeah, he did a great job. Kudos to that young man. But getting, Penei back out there, I think just solidifies things on the edge. Rashan Gary returned for them last week. They've been kind of working him in. He got more work last week, had 3 sacks against the Saints. So you like to have your bookend tackles.
Yeah, and I think, when you're dealing with even Big V still being out, you have the tackles in their right spots and trying to figure out from there, it's boosting the floor of the line versus, where are you going to be if Sewell is playing? What are you doing at right tackle if Sewell is playing left tackle again this week?
Yeah, 100%. All right, let's get into some of these matchups real quick. All right, let's get into these matchups. Let's start right away with I think it'll be an important one. Lions defensive back Brian Branch, who's been terrific to start the season, versus their slot wide receiver Jayden Reed. Now, look, we were both in Mobile.
Good player.
And we liked Jayden Reed. He made my list
10.
of one of the guys, that impressed me that week. And when you look at him through 3 games, look, 9 catches, 148 yards. He's averaging 16.4 yards per catch, and he's got 2 touchdowns. And look, PG, if Detroit can rush the passer as well as they did last week, where are your security valves for Jordan Love for the quarterback? It's your tight ends and your slot receiver, right? That's, you look at whenever Goff is in trouble, he looks to his tight ends or he looks to Amon-Ra St. Brown. And so I think that's a key matchup here. And when you've got Brian Branch, I mean, this kid's a defensive. I don't think it's out of line to say he's a defensive rookie of the year candidate already.
Definitely not. I mean, he's got to be in that conversation, but it's a different game for Brian Branch, I think, this week. He really stuck out in the run game last week, making plays at the line of scrimmage, getting Algier down behind the line of scrimmage, getting Bijan down behind the line of scrimmage, 3 tackles for loss last week. You're playing nickel this week. Like, you got to go cover a slot receiver who's been he's got 20 targets through 3 games. He had a 2-touchdown game in week 2 against Atlanta. He dropped 2 touchdowns on Sunday that he was open for. So he's clearly a red zone threat for them, that they expect that he can get it done and score touchdowns for them. I mean, two top 50 picks, 2 second-round picks squaring off in week 4, and one of the biggest games, primetime game early on in their career. It's going to be definitely an interesting matchup.
18 tackles, 3 tackles for loss.
He's pretty good,
3 passes defended, an interception with a touchdown, the pick 6 week 1. I mean, guy just makes plays, and I don't think it's out of line to say that he was the best defensive player on the field on Sunday against Atlanta, and PJ was his 3rd game in the league.
I mean, he's a special player. There's nothing more that you can say at this point. And, that's a guy now on the flip side that Green Bay always has to know where 32 is.
Right.
You got to be aware of what he can do and what he is bringing to the table. And for a Lions defense that has been so banged up, loses your other guy that you had to know where Chauncey Gardner-Johnson was, having him step up immediately in the first game was I don't know what it was exactly what this team needed.
Yeah, 100%. And Jordan Love now, we get to see him for the first time.
It's going to be interesting.
It's that the Aaron Rodgers era is over. They've ushered in the Jordan Love era. And look, 7 touchdowns, 1 interception.
He's looked good.
He's 53% completion percentage. They'd like to see that a little bit higher. But look, he's made plays down the field. He's been pretty good. And so, again, he's going to be looking for guys like Jayden Reed, like Christian Watson, like his 2 young tight ends. And so I think a guy like Brian Branch is going to be important to be right in the middle of all that when it breaks down and Jordan's trying to maybe make a play with his legs or his arm.
Absolutely. You let your best players do the work, and that's Brian Branch has proven that through 3 games so far.
All right, let's stick with Detroit's defense. Aidan Hutchinson, who was terrific last week.
Also very good last week.
Breakout performance last week. And, I put David Bahktiari there because I think he's going to play. If not, they've got Rasheed Walker, who's been pretty good filling in for him. So, whatever that matchup looks like, it's an important one because you saw the impact that Aidan Hutchinson had. Yep. Look, we've seen it the first 2 weeks, right? He had pressured the quarterback, but there's a little bit difference about pressuring a guy and then, getting him completely off his spot and sacking him. And then the strip sack and the recovery and the 2 sacks.
They come in bunches.
They come, yeah. And 7 total sacks for the Lions, 11 tackles for loss. And I think it really all started up front with Aidan Hutchinson, really in that first series, just some of the impact he started to have there. And I think all the guys fed off it. Now, Bahktiari is an all-pro player. He's world class. Hasn't allowed a pressure this year in 30+ pass rush reps when he was healthy. Week 1, he's a perennial Pro Bowl type guy, and that'd be a terrific matchup. Now they move Aidan to both sides, so he's going to see a lot of it. But I think when they're squared up, can Aidan get the best of the Pro Bowl or the veteran guy on the edge and help kind of be a catalyst for this defensive line all over again? Yeah,
I think it's going to be important. You're obviously going to look to Aidan to get the pass rush started. That is your number one unquestioned option there, and he's the spin move to me has become kind of like the staple.
That spin move to the inside was pretty sweet,
especially when he's rushing from the edge, and he's been very, very good. I mean, my note is how much do we see him inside, because that's where he's been extra effective this year is over the guard. I mean, that's where most of his pressures have come from. But, if you're going up against the all-pro, one of the best left tackles in the league, can that spin move, if that's going to become your go-to staple, David Bahktiari knows that. That's not, so what is your secondary plan? But how effective can that be against a quarterback that hasn't seen a lot of game action? In the Lambeau game last year, Aidan got Rodgers quick and tried to make a swipe at the ball on that sack, but Rodgers, a veteran, knows he's got to pull it down and tuck and just live to see another down. Can you get to Jordan Love? And can you maybe swipe at the ball that maybe he doesn't have the same instinct that Aaron Rodgers does? It's definitely something to keep an eye on.
Well, and Dan said one of the things that he's done really well is making plays down the field and giving guys a chance to get down the field. Giving them, good 50-50 balls. Well, in order to do that, you got to hold it a couple extra seconds. And if you like to get the ball downfield, if that's part of your game, to your point, there might be some opportunities there with an extra second as he maybe waits
you got this
for a safety to clear.
Week, so it's on the radar for Aidan Hutchinson, at least.
So to me, that's a big matchup. All right, let's go to the other side of the football. Graham Glasgow versus Kenny Clark, who I think is one of the better interior guys.
Superstar.
In this league. Really, really good. You look at Glasgow, 2 hurries, 1 hit, no sacks. Not bad. Filling in for Big V. And it doesn't look like Big V is going to be able to make it this week. I think that's probably smart. You hold him out here, you get an extra 10 days and probably
the mini bye.
Carolina, you're probably thinking he's back. They didn't put him on IR. They're thinking it would be less than 4 games. So that would be the case with Carolina. But look, Glasgow's a guy who started 91 games, right? I mean, he's been in it both here and in Denver. He's seen this. He's seen great players. And something tells me this might be one of those games where Frank Ragnow, the center's maybe looking to help a little bit, especially when Kenny is lined up over the right side there.
Yeah, and I think, you made the point earlier, and I know we're going to talk about Penei next, but he goes back to right tackle. Graham had as good of a game as he did with just a rotation of right tackle play. And you're playing off of that as a guard so much that, it's going to be a little difficult when you're not comfortable or you don't necessarily know who is right beside you. And Coach said this morning that, Frank and Graham had to help Colby out a little bit, and we're shading a little bit more to that side and trying to figure out, how they're going to get through the game with your third string right tackle on game day when your first string right tackle is playing left tackle. So if Sewell comes back to the right, I feel like you're just getting everybody a little bit more comfortable. And
everybody settles in.
I think that'll be good for Graham too.
12 tackles, 2 sacks, 5 quarterbacks hits from the interior. That guy's a super. I put him right there with the Chris Jones and Aaron Donalds of the world as in terms of interior guys who are just some of the best in the league.
Absolutely.
All right, you mentioned it. Let's shift over to the right side. Penei Sewell, who it sounds like it's going to shift back to his, spot at right tackle versus Rashan Gary. And look, Gary's guy who's coming off an ACL, but they're kind of working him back in. But he's been terrific.
He's all the way back.
Yeah, he looks good. I think he only played 23 reps, maybe something like that last week. It was 12 week 1, but I expect that to jump up considerably, especially after last week when he had 3 sacks and 23 reps.
Yeah, you'll take that.
Yeah, you'll take that. And look, I think for Penei, I thought he did a solid job on the left side. He's always hard on himself. Thought he should have done better, but look, didn't allow a sack, didn't allow a quarterback hit. Had a couple penalties, which, needed to clean up a little bit. But him going over back to the right side, that's where he dominates. Rashan Gary mostly lines up on the right side there. So I think that's a key matchup, an important one on the edge in this one.
Yeah, you got to be aware of where 52 is. I like we said about Brian Branch to start, that's their guy that you have to game plan for Rashan Gary, and you didn't have to game plan for Rashan Gary at the end of last year in that big game at Lambeau because he was out. But that guy is back. He is an elite edge rusher. We talk about, can Aidan make that jump into that Rashan Gary tier? That's where you're looking when you draft a guy that high. Rashan Gary is like the best possible outcome. He is really, really good. And
some of those bull rushes last week,
he's back. Whatever ailment was coming off the ACL, and you got to limit him and work him back slowly, especially because that happened midway through last year. I think Sunday's game proved that guy is ready to go.
113 pass block reps for Penei Sewell in 3 games. 2 total pressures.
Yeah.
He's been good.
He's really good.
He's good. And so, again, what a dynamic matchup there on the edge. They've got to keep Rashan Gary, out of the backfield. They got to keep Jared Goff on time. This is a really good Packers defense. I think in all 3 levels, they've got guys.
They're loaded. They just keep adding to it, too.
Yeah. And they can make plays. I think that's the strength of this team. And so you saw what Detroit was able to do at Atlanta last week. They can't allow Green Bay to do the same thing, disrupt them, get them out of what they want to do. That's how Green Bay wins this game.
Because it's a lot of timing, too. I feel like Jared is a quarterback that gets into a rhythm and likes to hit the digs over the middle, and you need to have time to have that develop. And if you get off schedule even a little bit, then maybe a couple plays get thrown out of whack. I mean, we saw the offense stall out a little bit against Atlanta and then get back on the tracks, and that can't happen against an elite defensive unit like this.
All right, let's finish up with this one. Sam Laporta versus Darnell Savage. And I was kind of looking to see how they would match up against Laporta. And just some of what I've seen on film from their first couple games is Quay Walker handles the running backs a lot. They kind of put the safeties on the tight ends. And so, Darnell Savage versus Laporta, I think, is a key one because we see what Laporta has meant to this team the first 3 weeks. Again, we talked about Branch, terrific second-round pick. Their other second-round pick, who they selected before Branch, Sam Laporta, 18 receptions, 186 yards and a touchdown. He's the first tight end to have 5+ catches in each of his first 3 games. Leads all tight ends in receptions. His 186 yards are second most. Kid's pretty good.
Yeah, I don't know what else we can say at this point about Sam Laporta. He gets open. He breaks tackles, run after catch ability. I mean, you saw all of that at Iowa where he was their main option and slotted in the NFL, and it has been able to do the exact same thing.
And, one thing that Dan Campbell said about him this week is that if he makes a mistake, he never makes it the same one twice. And that trust. That Jared Goff trusts him. And look, it's hard for rookies in this league to come in and earn the trust of a veteran quarterback like Jared Goff. The fact that he doesn't make the same mistake twice, he's always in the same spot. He's got terrific hands. He can run after the catch. He's been terrific. And that combination of him and St. Brown over the middle has been really tough for defenses to take away. Especially, you could maybe take away one. Take away in really both of them is really, really hard. And so, that's been a huge boost. And can the rookie, keep it up? Can he get 5+ catches again for 4 straight week?
It's like when we were talking about Amon-Ra as a rookie, where he was coming up with 8 every week and setting that record every game as it came on. I mean, it feels like 3 years ago all over again.
You got to love that matchup, Laporta against the safety, though.
Yeah.
And he's such a dynamic player that you love that matchup against a linebacker, too, because, he's going to be faster than a linebacker. He's going to be bigger and stronger, and he's got really good hands versus safety. I just think he's one of those guys who's a matchup nightmare.
I think you have the advantage, too, that he's been a quality blocker to this point where he can be in line and you don't have to split him out outside and kind of get creative on how you're deploying him there. He can block with the rest of the team at this point. So if you don't have to split him out wide necessarily to get the matchup that you want.
So there were the 5 key matchups for this week. Obviously, there'll be a lot more Thursday night. We will be at Lambeau Field. Hey, you know what? We should do a podcast post-game from Lambeau.
Oh, really?
Let's do that.
Let's do that.
All right, you guys can look forward to that Thursday, and hopefully me and him are talking about a Lions victory Thursday night.